Jeff, Jim, and Carmela, part number 6. Jeff realized how special his gift was when celebrating his 7th birthday party. He began to amaze some of the people at his party. As the other children came in carrying gifts, he started to combine all the movements, sounds, and comments from the children as well as the adults. He could understand just by observing the movement of a person's mouth without hearing the words. One mother telling the other about looking all over town for the gift her child wanted to give. If Jeff could see the mouth, he knew the words spoken, regardless of how adult or difficult. But at this time, he did not understand the meaning of some of the words spoken by the adults. When it came time to open the gifts, Jeff announced he would guess the contents of the package before he opened it. He named them all, even the color and small details of the item. Most of the gifts he had observed in the department store with his mother, and used this cumulative knowledge to give more detail than was humanly possible. The other children could care less and were not impressed. But some of the adults were flabbergasted, especially Jeff's mother. Even the looks of the adults combined to give Jeff more information about all gathered in the room. He started to observe those who were more impressed than others. This was giving Jeff insight to these people and their reactions to out-of-the-ordinary things. Some of the adults were as unassuming to this as the children. This gave Jeff an accumulated look into each adult and child, which gave him the ability to use comparisons. Jeff's mother did not have much to say as she was driving them home. She had a look on her face that was telegraphing concerns to Jeff's brain, and he finally said, "Mother, what I did at the party was nothing. I just observe what's going on around me, and I never forget anything." Jeff's mother was speechless for a while as they continued down the road toward home. She began to think about an article she had read in Reader's Digest about the condition called idiot savant. She was convinced Jeff did not suffer from this condition. Jeff was a normal kid, and up until that day of the birthday party, never displayed any signs of someone who could do what he did. Idiot savant, considered to be a mental disability that gave sufferers exceptional brilliance in limited areas like mathematics or music. Jeff's talent was more of an ability that could appear normal in daily life because it was not noticeable as a condition or syndrome. Jeff's mother decided that day in the car to keep this ability a secret from the rest of the family. She knew if others were aware of Jeff's ability, they would be prodding him to show his talent. She wanted to protect him from adverse things that could happen if his abilities were known. Jeff could do amazing things with his ability of total recall. However, he would grow to adulthood with only him and his mother, knowing about this amazing ability to retain what he saw, heard, or read. Then a keenly observant colonel, who was Jeff's United States Air Force Security Service Squadron commander, would uncover this amazing talent, which would send Jeff on several journeys to faraway places with strange-sounding names. The Air Force colonel would alert headquarters about finding a young airman with extraordinary talents. This would create an all-out effort on the part of MI7 to determine if this was a legitimate find or something else. They also wanted to clear him of any possible links to foreign intelligence. During his interview with MI7, Jeff explained as well as he could how he was able to do what he did. Over the years, as he grew into an adult, Jeff attempted to explain his talent. It was difficult to place his ability into context with a way to describe his thought process. This was now what he was asked to do by the people interviewing him. Jeff was quick to say his gift did not involve any ESP, extrasensory perception. The talent was so normal for Jeff, it became a mystery to him that other people could not accomplish what he considered a simple task. He had now accepted the fact that this was a gift from God and a gift not given to all, and he now thought he might be the only one with this gift. The people at MI7 were beginning to think the same thing. When Jeff was in a crowded room, he always concentrated not to concentrate on all the voices. This may sound strange, but it was such a part of his thought process, he began to separate voices from normal conversation. He did this not because of an inability to process all the voices, but it was a nuisance to waste time on voices that were not part of what he was analyzing. He could single in on one conversation of several voices and recall the exact time and place he heard the voice, regardless of the time in between. Jeff could hear someone hailing a taxi, and if he heard that voice a year later in a crowded airport, he could pinpoint the exact time and place he heard that voice. Jeff had the ability to list the multiple places where he heard the voice. His brain had the ability to process sights, smells, and actions of those he was tasked to watch. Several times he was shown news footage and was able to identify people, places, and the exact time when they were at that location. Jeff could listen to someone speaking perfect English and tell if the person had learned the language or if it was his or her native language. One day when Jim visited headquarters, the director called most of the language people into a room and asked Jeff if he could identify the origin of the person speaking. Jeff began analyzing those that spoke in their language. Jeff began to listen to those called in to test Jeff. Jeff could tell the region of a country to speak. Let me try that again. Jeff began analyzing those that spoke in their language. Jeff could tell the region of a country the speaker was from, regardless of the language they spoke. He could detect the origin of those whose primary language was English as they fluently spoke another language. The linguists in the room were impressed with Jeff's abilities. Jeff had a mental catalog of people's mannerisms and could tell you what kind of work they did and the region of the country they came from. That is the way he identified the undercover New York City detective playing the role of a housekeeper at JFK while waiting on the Pan American flight to Istanbul. Jeff was an extremely valuable tool for MI7, and his services were in constant demand. Jeff, after joining MI7, continued to amaze his supervisors, especially with a procedure Jeff called the freight train effect. This came to Jeff when he was watching an old black and white rerun of Davy Crockett. Davy Crockett could duplicate the Cherokee Indians' talent of walking through the forest without detection. The Cherokee Indians never snapped a twig as they approached wild game. With Jeff's ability to analyze and observe everything occurring in and around him, he developed the ability to walk among people without giving himself away. The best way to describe this ability was the freight train effect. People who moved into houses located near railroads would always wake up when a train passed. This would usually last 3 or 4 weeks, and sometimes less. After a while, when the train passed, its sound became so familiar, the brain began to overlook it. Jeff could use this freight train effect to move without detection. Most people could use this technique, but Jeff had taken this phenomenon to the outer limits. Jeff, after observing his surroundings and sounds, could duplicate them as he walked. His abilities gave him unlimited amounts of leeway to be unheard as he approached a mark. Some of these abilities were teachable to others, but most of what Jeff could do was only possible for someone with his rare abilities, and to this date, MI7 told Jeff they had not found anyone who possessed the ability to do what Jeff could do. Jeff was always quick to tell those who used his services that what he did was natural. He would often say, "It appears I can read minds, but I assure you that is not the case. Humans telegraph thoughts by actions, and I admit I see those actions more acutely than anyone else." Jeff would try to explain how these actions were part of his thinking. The way a person moved a hand through their hair while looking in a certain direction, all of this had significant clues when you were observing someone. All of these were telling signs of what a person was thinking. Jeff could never explain all aspects of his analytical abilities because only he knew what they were, and sometimes he would observe things he could not begin to explain. Jeff could walk into a crowded room and in just a few minutes know those who could become trusted or intimate friends. The reason Jeff was on his way to Istanbul, Turkey, was Vladimir. Vladimir disappeared in Turkey while on vacation with his wife and daughter. The Soviets were expending vast amounts of resources and labor trying to find him. This concentrated effort from the Soviets, as well as other agencies, caught the eyes of MI7, and Jeff received the assignment to join in the search. They did not know if Vladimir had defected to another country or experienced some fate not related to his politics and position as a scientist. It was believed a band of gypsies had robbed him and thrown him into the Bosporus. If he was a defector, the company, MI7, wanted to find him. At the same time, MI7 told Jeff they wanted the Soviets to think he had already defected to the West. This would diminish the Soviet efforts to find Vladimir. If Vladimir was still in Turkey, Jeff would find him.